space explorer. When I pointed the telescope, I invented space, and I discovered a whole new world. Me, Galileo Galilei. I was born on the 15th of February, 1564. When I was 8 years old, my parents moved to Florence, and I stayed in Pisa until I was 10. Then I moved to Florence with my parents. I studied medicine, and I was fascinated by mathematics and geometry and took classes 3 years later. In 1608, an amazing invention took place, but I would make it even better. Dutchman Hans Lippershey invented a telescope which magnified objects 3 times, and it excited the whole of Europe. In the same year, I managed to improve the magnification from 3 times to 20 times, and the government rewarded me gratefully and thought it would be good for sailors and soldiers, but I had other plans. I pointed it at space. When I pointed my telescope at space, I discovered a whole new world. I discovered that Saturn had rings, Jupiter had moons, the Sun had sunspots, how the planets moved around the Sun, and not the Earth, and much, much more. Unfortunately, in 1633, I got under house arrest because of thinking the planets moved around the Sun and not the Earth. Also, my discoveries were very different to Australian scholars, so they banned my book completely and no one could read it. During my house arrest, I wrote poems. I died in 1642 with much knowledge about space. I discovered lots of things in space. Thank you.
Well, Galileo, that was amazing. Look at your table display. This is brilliant.
Now, I shall explain my equipment. Here is the feather that I wrote, because they didn't have pens or pencils at the time. Here is a little model of the planets. So I discovered, so this is the Sun, and there's sunspots on the Sun, and I discovered that. And so how planets moved around the Sun, and they thought that the Earth was in the middle and the Sun was on the outside. These 2 planets, Uranus and Neptune, weren't discovered at that time. And here are all the other planets.
And Saturn's rings were discovered as well, but they seem to have fallen off the model, don't they?
Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. My question is, what did you feel when you first looked into space with the telescope?
And you saw things that nobody had ever seen before.
Yes. I felt very amazed and very proud of myself that I invented the first telescope which looked into space. And first, when I saw Saturn's rings, I didn't know that they were rings because I couldn't see them that clearly. They just looked like a blob to me, but I still discovered them. Any more questions?
What was the most amazing thing that you saw in space?
Well, all of them were amazing, but I think the most amazing thing was when I saw Jupiter, I saw 5 moons. I didn't know they were moons, but they just looked like little things spinning around Jupiter. I didn't know what they were, but I soon discovered that they were moons.
And that helped you to figure out that the planets did go around the sun, maybe?
Yes, it did.
How did you feel when you had to go in front of the Spanish Inquisition or whoever it was and say to them, okay, then everything does go around the earth, I was wrong? Because he had to say that, didn't he? He had to take it back. How did you feel when you had to take it back and you knew it was wrong?
Now I will explain all of the things on my table. So here is what I would bring.
Oh, I like the satin eyes.
What I would bring. So here, the little cat, Galileo. And so the writing feather. Here, there's the writing feather.
It's called a quill. Quill, yeah.
Here is ink that I would dip the feather right into the ink and then I would write. And then there was paper, because I can't write with paper. And so the telescope that I invented, and it looked like this. That part was actually brown, but here, so the eye also, because I had a problem with my eyes, because I kept looking at the sun, and before I died I actually went completely blind.
Oh my goodness.
And my hat with the feather in it.
That shows you shouldn't look at the sun through binoculars.
Let's look at these little satin dots.
So that is my bag. And so here are my questions. What made Galileo explore space? And what important events happened in Galileo's life?
Who on earth wrote this beautiful writing? Was that you? Very nice.
And here is a draft timeline. It's only in black and white. And here's the same thing in colour. You can look at it if you want. So they are the important events, and that is the answer to this question right here. And the most important event is when he invented the telescope, because that was his biggest and most important invention.
And it allowed him to make the other discoveries, didn't it?
Yes. So it's a bit like, well, it is cause and effect, because if he wouldn't have made the telescope, then he wouldn't have explored space. And if he wouldn't have explored space, he would become famous. And if he wouldn't become famous, then I would not be here right now.
That's right. Thank you, Savannah, for your wonderful presentation on Galileo.
Can we see here?
I'm not done yet.